So there I am on my 25th birthday, driving from Wheeling, West Virginia to Bensonhurst in a Dodge Dart with no radio and a gun runner named Barrelhead, who insisted we sing every Jimmy Buffett song he could recall. What could I say? The man was heavily armed. So 500 renditions of Margaritaville later, my first cover. 8,000 words on how Barrelhead and his friends were transporting handguns for sale to New York City. The day the magazine hit the stands, the DA hit me with a subpoena. He wanted to know Barrelhead's real name. And Greta had been managing editor for 3 whole days, so she invited me across the street to the fancy bar where they use real glasses. And after about the 6th vodka and tonic, she said, "Fletch, I want you to know the magazine is behind you." Well, I was impressed. I said, "You think you can get the DA off my back?" And she said, "No. But when you get out of jail, you'll still have a job." I'm 45. I've given up a lot. Given up the road, that life. Thanks, Elizabeth. No regrets. My lovely wife. I've given up drinking. I've given up drugs. Greta taught me there's 2 things you never give up. One's rock and roll, the other's a source. Greta Sims. Great memory, Greta. I only hope you can adjust to the lack of stress in your...
Fletch? Fletch? Fletcher? Fletch? Fletcher?
Fletcher?
Honey? Sweetie? Are you okay? Are you okay?
I flung the investment.
What did you say?
Oh. Flung the investment. Well, I can sign. Why consign?
I'll call 911.
It's proficient. Why disqualify the rush? I'm tabled. I'm tabled.
You taking any drugs?
I displaced my function. Accolade.
He used to drink regularly, but he's been clean and sober for nearly a year.
Mr. Stone, you think you're speaking normally, but your speech is impaired. He knows what he wants to say, but when he reaches for a word, he finds something else.
I grapple average. 10s are glisten.
He doesn't know that he's saying it wrong?
It all sounds right to him. I want you to write your name and draw a face.
It's called agraphia. Loss of ability to write. Most often, it's temporary.
How hard did he hit his head?
It was a pretty good crack. It made a really ugly sound.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Of golf.
Now give me a sentence. Just a yes or a no. You understand me?
Yes.
Elizabeth. Fletch. Is he okay?
We don't know. This is Fletch's editor.
Greta Sims, I wanted to make sure that the EMTs told you the right story.
How many stories are there?
He didn't trip. He just fell out of the blue. His foot jerked a little bit first. That's what made it look like a trip.
If he didn't trip, something made him fall. Stroke? Seizure?
30 people saw him trip. 1 person says he didn't. Who are we going to believe?
His symptoms can all be explained by the head trauma. Causes a contusion or a seizure, that causes the aphasia. We should get an EEG.
If it was a stroke, could be a clotting issue.
Even if he fell, drug use is far more likely. I'm ordering toxicrane.
Chase, we're not done with the differential.
You're not my boss.
I'm House's boss. House is your boss. The math is pretty simple.
Are you signing my paychecks? Are you hiring and firing?
This is not about that.
The only thing you've been asked to do is supervise House in case he does something insane.
Which might, save a life.
Somebody's got to be in charge.
Why?
What do you think? We should all just do whatever we want to do? Maybe have a race to the diagnosis.
I think it should be a discussion among peers. I think we're grown up enough to reach a consensus.
Patient 60.
This will show us if there's a problem with your carotid artery that might cause a blood clot. If it went to his brain, it could explain the aphasia and the falling down.
And you're giving him an EEG, is that for the same thing?
It's just a precaution. I think the trauma caused some swelling, and we need to keep him stable until the body can repair the damage.
And you think they're both wrong?
We're just covering all the bases. We're being safe.
So2 sap's going down.
Fluid in his lungs.
Push 40 IV LASIK.
We need to intubate. He's losing his respiratory drive. Down, him down. And then there were two. Aphasia and fluid in the lungs. Seizure can't cause both,
Neither can a stroke.
unless he had an abnormal heart rhythm.
And then there was one. Urine test is positive for amphetamines.
Amphetamines don't cause pulmonary edema.
Indeed, if you smoke them.
In one of his books, he talked about giving up drugs and alcohol, how it changed his life.
Everybody lies. Any family history of neurological problems?
No.
You've been out of the country in the last 5 years.
Yes?
3 years?
Yes?
2 years?
He stopped traveling for work 2 years ago after we got serious.
Any vacations?
His last one was 6 months ago. It was a golf resort at Key Biscayne.
No way it was a golf resort. Knowing Fletch, I assume he was working his way through every bar in the Keys, last hurrah before settling down.
Alcohol.
No.
Amphetamines.
No.
You tested positive.
He doesn't use drugs. I told you. When we got engaged, we decided we wanted a different kind of life. And he dropped the macho journalism, no more taking crazy chances. That includes his health.
He asked me not to tell Elizabeth.
He's been lying to her about his drug habit?
Well, yes and no. B.E., before Elizabeth, he used drugs recreationally. I wasn't crazy about it, but that thrill-seeking behavior is what made him the kind of journalist that he was.
And now, A.E.?
Man's twisted himself into knots for her. Completely cleaned up his act.
But the drugs.
They're medicinal. Sort of. He was having trouble sleeping. His new suburban lifestyle. Lack of excitement was throwing him off.
So he started with sleeping pills.
When they knocked him out, he needed something to perk him back up during the day.
Every day? No slippery slope there.
Keep the sting. Knife can't force.
We're not going to tell your wife. We're not cops.
There's a little edema, brain swelling, and an area of scarring.
Is that what's causing the aphasia?
Actually, that's what's odd. The scarring's not in the area of the brain normally associated with conduction aphasia. And it's old. It happened before he hit his head. Maybe a small stroke or some other underlying condition that could be causing this, or it might have nothing to do with it at all. Have you ever had head trauma before? An accident? Ever had any numbness on one side before? Dizziness?
What is the durable? No.